Welcome back to the IT Fundamentals Plus training series. My name is Mark Haupt, and I am your instructor. And I want to welcome you today to talk about buses, period. Just buses. That's it. Just buses. You know, those things that take us around with lots of people? No, not really. Join me, find out what a bus really is. Welcome back to the IT Fundamentals training series. So we're going to talk about buses today. And no, they're not the little yellow school buses that take your kids to school, or perhaps the little buses that take you around the city if you're in a larger city. Today, what we're talking about is a computer architecture called a bus. There is an understanding that the bus is actually very similar to the physical vehicle bus that we were just joking about a moment ago. So the word bus comes from the Latin term of omnibus, and it really does mean a data highway or a data bus. And what a bus is a wire or a communication path that takes data from one component to another. Now, the reason that we're talking about buses so early on in the process here is because if you look at a motherboard and you see the little paths that go between, such as a CPU, for example, and the random access memory slots, or perhaps other microprocessor slots, or maybe the GPU, remember the graphics processor unit, you'll see these little silver lines that go in there. And that is typically the bus. That is where the data will transfer from those devices to another portion of the motherboard. But that's not the only piece of bus that we need to talk about. There are also, buses can be optical, meaning like fiber optics type of things, or it can be a wire. And I guarantee you that every single one of you has used a bus and not realized it. And that's because the bus is also a USB. I'm sure you've heard that term before, USB, or Universal Serial Bus. Recognize that B? USB. Universal Serial Bus. So that's the wire that will connect from your computer, perhaps to your monitor, or perhaps to your phone or other type of device, to transfer the data from your computer to that device and back and forth. So when you have a USB device, you are actually using a bus, and hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more. But there are other buses too. There's parallel and bit serial buses, and there's also the term electrical bus bar that actually communicates or transmits the electricity back and forth inside of that. So buses are fairly simple once you actually understand the concept of what it's for. Is to transmit data, is transmit information. So hopefully that helps you get through that little piece. Let's talk about a couple of the different kinds of buses that are out there, though. So we have internal buses, and these are for you would have memory buses or system buses or front side buses. These are the types of devices that connect all the internal components on the computer. So you may have a bus that, for example, that goes from the CPU to the random access memory, or you may have a bus, which in this case would be a physical wire that goes from the motherboard over to a DVD drive, or perhaps even the hard drive, depending on the type of bus that we're looking at, or type of device. So those are called internal buses. Then we have the external bus, or the expansion bus, and that's made up of typically the electrical pathways that connect different types of external devices. So when you connect your printer to your computer, when it's not done wirelessly, for example, that is through a bus. On my computer right here, you can see, if you're on the video version of this, you can see that I have a wire that is actually connected to a USB plug, or that universal serial bus plug, that goes into my computer, and that is literally transmitting my voice from this microphone through that wire into the computer for processing. Right now there is a and that would be the external bus. And then if I had an external camera attached to my computer, very similar type of thing. The wire would be transmitting the images that are on the camera down into the computer, and that would be considered an external bus. Then there's what's called address multiplexing, and that's on the wires themselves that can either be 16-bit addresses or 16 physical wires that make up that bus. So in other words, if this cable right here that's being used, again, if you're on the video version of this, if you're on the audio version only, it's a literal cable that goes from my headset that I have, the microphone that I have in front of me, and the earphones I have on, into my computer, and it could potentially have 16 wires inside of here to transmit different signals at different layers. So these are what's called buses. Then we move on down to different types, like a memory bus that connects the main memory to the motherboard, for example, and so on and so forth. So hopefully this will give you a good understanding of what buses are. It's a short episode today, but I wanted to make sure you had a good understanding of that. And then we'll pick up on some other things tomorrow. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Reminder for you, though, that the best way for these sessions to be of use to you is if you're sending me email or you're sending me some form of communication that will allow me to understand what you're struggling with and what I can help with. So I need your questions. I need those questions from you. And you could send those to me at mhoupt at commonsensesecurity.net. And I would love to have those questions come in, because when I have those questions, then I can understand what you're struggling with, and I can better focus my training on you and what you need to know, because the book can certainly teach you plenty, and then having understanding of what you're struggling with is very important in this process. So again, mhoupt at Common Sense Security. That's one word, no spaces. commonsensesecurity.net. All right, you all have a good day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on the next session.